welcome everyone to Interconversations, a series of online forums organized by the internationalization team here at the Department of Early Childhood Education at the Education University of Hong Kong. My name is Alfredo Bautista. I am a professor and also the associate head for internationalization here in the ECE department. And I'm very excited to see so many international colleagues, international friends connected here and joining here for the webinar today. As many of you know, Interconversation was born in 2020 during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic in our attempt to keep the international community engaged and connected. As many of you know, this initiative was very well received, so we decided to continue organizing these webinars to keep these interesting conversations going, focusing on a variety of topics that are relevant to early childhood educators, not only here in Hong Kong locally and regionally, but also internationally. So the title of today's Interconversation webinar, as you will be able to see on the screen, is Young Children's Well-Being in the Digital Era. So for today's session, we have around 300 participants who have registered for the session. Many of you here from Hong Kong and also from mainland China and also from countries around the world. So many thanks everyone for your interest and for taking the time to join us today. Especially those of you who are here in Asia. It's a little bit late, so it's great to meet you here virtually and establish this connection with you. So today we have invited my very good colleague and friend, Dr. Jana Valdez, to be the moderator and also one of the speakers for the webinar today. Jana is an assistant professor here in our ECE department. She completed her PhD in education technology at the University of Hong Kong. Jana's research focuses on how social emotional constructs such as gratitude affect students' well-being and academic performance. She also investigates the factors that contribute to teachers adopting and integrating technology in teaching and learning effectively. So combining these two areas, Jana explores the development of digital well-being among young children and the social-emotional progress of students as they interact with technology, including also generative AI platforms. So Jana, thank you so much for being here today. I will pass now the microphone to you. And as you know, I will be here all the time listening to all the presentations, and I will be back at the end of the session for question and answers or just to close the session, right? So please help me to welcome Jana Valdez. Thank you so much, Jana. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Alfredo, for your warm welcome introduction. I'm really delighted to bring this forum to you, and it's wonderful to have your support today, wherever you are in the world. So we have good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone. We've been planning this for the past 2 months, and we are pleased to bring this to you today. As you can see on the screen, the title of today's session is Young Children's Wellbeing in the Digital Era. As mentioned by Alfredo, my main research area is in educational technology, and being part of ECE, I want to focus on exploring how technology affects children's social, mental, emotional, and physical well-being. You see, technology is an indispensable tool and element in our lives today. It even feels incomplete whenever you forget your phone when you go out of the house, right? And for this generation of young kids who were born into this digital age, technology is just all around them. And as teachers and parents, we ask ourselves questions like how much screen time is too much, or how will this affect their brain and body development? How will their social emotional needs be met with so much social interaction takes place online? Or how are children at risk of cyberbullying or online predators? How are social media feeds and their algorithms affect children's ability to think? And will the advice given by generative AI tools hinder the development of critical thinking and lead them onto dangerous paths? As so much of the technological spaces is in flux and constantly developing, what is known about these topics can be confusing and or contradictory. The truth is that we as adults are also learning about these topics and navigating them for the first time in our lives. And so today we are really fortunate to be able to explore these important topics with our panel of speakers consisting of ECE researchers who will share with us their views about young children's well-being in the digital era. So the structure of the session will go like this. We have four speakers today, including myself, and each of us will have around 10 minutes to give a short presentation addressing two key questions which I had given to them in advance. So the two questions are, how are young children's social, emotional, mental, and well-being development changing in this digital era? And the second is, what practical strategies can educators and parents implement to support young children's well-being? After the four presentations, we will proceed to a question and answer session where we will be answering and discussing the questions that participants typed during the presentations. Okay, so in my presentation, I would like to focus more on children's well-being development with AI interactions. So why with AI interactions? Because in AI, it's becoming more popular, and many schools nowadays are trying to promote the use of AI, not just for youth, but also in young children. And there are also a lot of advantages in using generative AI, including tailored teaching content. So teachers can use AI now to develop some more tailored teaching contents, which is somehow sometimes challenging for teachers. AI can also help produce culturally inclusive learning materials and conversational agent. And lastly, but the most popular reason why generative AI is so widely used nowadays is because it is readily available and easily accessible. It can be there with you 24/7, unlike, other teachers or other educational resources where it's more difficult for us to access. And before we discuss about this, I want to briefly share to you how we understand children's well-being development. And so when we talk about well-being development, it comprises physical, social, cognitive, and emotional development of young children. And we also try to base it on different or various theoretical frameworks, such as Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, wherein we discuss the interactions among environments that affects children's development. We also have Vygotsky's sociocultural theory that focuses on providing a scaffolding for young children in the zone of proximal development. We also have Piaget's stages of cognitive development, focusing on sensory learning, symbolic thinking in the early childhood level. We also have Albert Bandura's social learning theory, wherein Bandura states that, to effectively learn, modeling is important for young children. But when we look at this kinds of development for young children, when we focus on discussing different kinds of theoretical frameworks, one salient information that we could get is that interaction is very important for young children when we talk about social development. But before, when we talk about interaction, it's mainly about interacting with human beings. Children experience interactions through communication and interacting with human beings. But nowadays, with the existence of generative AI, children can also experience interacting with AI platforms. So aside from human beings, they can also interact now with computers and robots. And why and how do they interact with AI platforms? So normally children would use this to ask questions because children are born to be curious. And so when they learn that whenever they communicate or converse with AI platforms, AI can respond quickly to their questions and give them information. They could also ask AI platforms to provide some storytelling. They could also ask them to create arts with them. And even just as simple as sharing daily experiences and seeking help for mental health concerns, just like functioning of a friend. So there are even studies right now stating how AI has been perceived by young children as their friends. And some would even say that AI are becoming better friends than human being, which actually poses a threat to real-life relationships and emotional health development of young children. And apart from providing a lot of advantages in terms of using AI, there are also concerns in this AI use. First is the bias data, the potential biases that AI would actually produce, because whatever information that AI is giving us is based on who developed the AI or who actually encoded the information for the AI to provide whenever we ask them questions. The inaccuracy and reliability of the AI information, such as when AI hallucinates and provide misinformation. And lastly, there is also a potential to reduce the development of critical thinking skills of young children when they frequently use AI platforms. And so, since they also reduce, they may potentially reduce critical thinking skills, it increases their chances of actually engaging more with this AI. And whatever answers or information AI gives, they just simply consider those information as correct. They don't really try to assess of how this information is reliable. And aside from that, Shu also provided that there is also a lack of social etiquette when we interact with AI. Because as adults, whenever we discuss or talk with children, we try to teach them some polite words, right? Like we tell them, can you do this? Or when they ask you, sometimes you would remind them, can you say please? So we try to actually motivate them to be more polite when conversing. However, when we talk to AI, we can just say like, Alexa, turn on the lights, or okay Google, search for white dogs, or hey Siri. So there's nothing that requires us to actually be polite in talking to AI. And so, in that sense, children could also get the idea that you can just simply converse with AI. And actually, yesterday, I just tried using ChatGPT, if that's really the case. And so, I tried to be a little bit, not a good attitude with AI. And so, I said this to AI, you are, a blank chatbot. And then, surprisingly, ChatGPT just responded to me as, I'm sorry to hear you feel that way. I'm here to help, so let me know what you need or how I can improve. So there's no part or nothing part in the AI platform or ChatGPT that actually corrected how I was interacting with the AI platform, which is somehow a little bit concerning, because in a way, if children just keeps on expressing or talking to AI in this manner, they wouldn't actually learn how to properly communicate or interact if AI doesn't actually correct this kind of behavior. So how can we help? So AI can be used as scaffolding tools instead of just simply using it to provide us with direct answers. We can also enhance human relationships, since this is actually a threat. In terms of developing good relationships, we could develop engaging human interactive activities for young children to actually motivate them to have a better relationship with humans, making more time interacting with them. Because sometimes as adults, we are very busy, and so we find digital technologies as an exit, for them to just use this because I'm busy, don't disturb me now, right now. Or we can also teach them some gratitude or practice some gratitude, such as making them appreciate their physical environment, to also spend more time physically than just doing it digitally. Create a safe space environment, since they seek the use of AI platform to also express their mental health concerns. It is important that we provide a safe space for them, that it's let them feel that they can actually trust an adult to talk about or express their thoughts and feelings. Next is to establish rules. If it is unavoidable to use AI tools for young children, then limit the time of spending these digital tools, and especially that we can also allow it just for academic purposes, and it can only be used with adult supervision. And lastly is educate early. The children should learn that AI tools are still computers, something that they cannot just simply rely on, and it may also provide wrong information, so that they know that they should not just simply get whatever information that AI could provide them. So the key takeaways to my presentation is that there are still so many questions that we need further answers. Since AI is just very new in this academia, it's very important to provide further studies on how we can explore the advantages and disadvantages of using AI, especially for young children. We have to be cautious in promoting the use of AI for children's learning and development. We don't just simply promote it, but we also have to be aware of the disadvantages or whatever negative causes it can also provide. AI is incapable of fully replicating the benefits of human interaction, no matter how it can bring some fears to us, especially replacing our jobs. It could never really replace the benefits of human interaction. And so it is important to cultivate human interactions to children. And that is my 10-minute presentation for tonight. And now I will pass the floor to Dr. Jess for his presentation. So, Dr. Jess is an assistant professor of the guidance counseling and gifted education in the University of Hong Kong. He also serves as director of the Center for Advancement in Inclusive and Special Education. Further, he is the director of the Science of Happiness and Positive Education Lab, and he is a well being scientist with interests in positive psychology, positive education, inclusive education, giftedness, and teacher social emotional development.
Thank you so much, Alfredo and the entire ECE department for inviting me to do a sharing on how I think about the potential effects of technology use in the well-being of young children, locally and internationally. So I'll try to share a bit more from my uh, experiences currently working as a well-being scientist. So this is how my talk might look. So I'll try to share what I think as potential benefits and, as we call it, caveats of using technology within the context of supporting children's well-being. And I'll try to see whether we can think of some practical strategies to use technology. Again, keeping in mind our goal of supporting children's different indices of well-being. So in terms of the background of this particular pervasive, educational issue, so I think if you look at the scientific landscape that linking technology use to well-being in young children, so let us start with just a brief background about the extent of technology used in young children. So as I've been browsing the literature, I've come across some data indicating that for preschool children, those from 2 to 5, they're likely to have about 2 to 4 hours of screen time, whether it's tablet use, computer use, and so on and so forth. And if we turn to relatively older children, it's about 2 hours as well, right? And just to put things into context, like what the World Health Organization suggests is that for us to be able to achieve an optimal balance of technology use, it's good if we can keep children's technology use to about 2 hours per day. If we're talking about non-academic use of technology. And if this is what the scholarly landscape is showing us, that young children seem to be using it at a bit more frequent, or more than what we hope to for them to probably be exposed to, then we don't know what potential effects it might carry, right? And again, if we look at the recommended range of activities that these young children are expected to gain, to be able to function well. So scientists have been telling us that it's good if they can exercise for about 3 hours a day, because this is a very critical stage for them to physically and psychologically develop. So if the literature is telling that, well, most of them are exposed at least 2 hours a day to technology. So does it mean that there are activities that they may not be able to manage to do because of probably more exposure to technology? Because we're talking about what's reported in the literature. It's also likely that this number might have been underreported for all we know. So, and that's actually at least a good background information to guide us about the potential effects of technology use for young children's well-being. And what has been the literature saying so far about the ways in which technology might have been impacting young children's well-being? So there are two polar sides of the equation. So on the negative side, so there's been evidence showing that the more that kids are exposed to technology, the poorer their well-being outcomes are. So in other words, children who were more exposed to different technological tools are less likely to be happy. And that's quite consistent with some empirical and meta-analytic reviews I've come across with. And perhaps one reason is that the more that we expose these young children to technology, it could potentially interfere with their typical day-to-day kind of social interactions and other self-care strategies, perhaps. So the more that we expose them to these technological tools, then the lesser time that they might have learning some foundational social learning and other social emotional competencies. And that might be the mechanism why too much technology use might be bad for well-being. But on the other side of the coin, there's also evidence showing that, you know, letting them use technology might do some benefits for their well-being. And one possibility, again, one hypothesis might talk about the complementarity conjecture, which indicates that these young kids, if we expose them to technology, it could augment the typical day-to-day social learning and other academic interactions that we've been offering them. So in a way, if technological tools are intended to augment our social skills training, our academic training, so on and so forth, it could be a means to promote well-being. But again, what's pretty clear at this point is the literature is quite mixed. So there's no point for us to tell that, maybe technology is essentially bad for young children's well-being or the other way around. And there are also some nuanced effects that we observe in other, children, right? So, say for example, I've done a meta-analytic review with one of my doctoral students, and we're able to show that if we're using technology to support the learning and social emotional needs of students with diverse types of special needs or disability, they're likely to be happier. But for college students, it seems that too much use of some specific technological platforms can rob them opportunities to be creative, or they're less likely to show critical thinking competencies. And for some gifted students, some narrative or descriptive reviews have been showing us the potential dark side of technology. So the more that we expose gifted children to this too much technological advancements, the more that we're robbing them opportunities to uh, fully realize their academic, sports, and whatever potentials that they have genetically. So, in a sense, we see a relatively diverse pattern of effects as well, even for children with atypical developmental backgrounds. So, what we can learn from this particular scientific, findings. So, first, it actually pays to look at modifying or paying attention to what content we are embedding in whatever technological interventions that we've been facilitating or administering in school or probably community-based contexts. And in trying to design highly effective and probably health-oriented, technologically supported learning climates, we have to be careful about overusing some design elements such as gamification. For all we know, it could lead to boost in dopamine. If we actually excite these kids very much, then chances are, instead of doing the trick, instead of engaging young kids to better learning processes and outcomes, we may end up abusing the potential benefits of technology. So they might end up just attending those technologically supported learning sessions for positive feelings associated with the tool that you're using, instead of the intrinsic joy associated with learning the content, your lessons. And we have to be careful as well in terms of how much these technological tools or interventions can potentially deprive our young children of opportunities for them to learn more social skills or more probably basic social emotional competencies. And at least, for adults, both for teachers and parents, so we have to be clear about our intentions for using technology. So, are we using it in order to facilitate effective learning and, higher order thinking, or are we using it because we want to skip probably the hard work that goes with effectively grooming our young children to become effective learners? So, if we're able to keep these things in mind, I do think that there's a potential for technology to support young children's well-being and maximum learning potential. So that will be the end of my sharing. Thank you. I think it would be Constance's turn now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jess, for your wonderful presentation. So, our third speaker is Dr. Constance Schoeps, joining us from Spain. So, Konstanze is a general health psychologist and associate professor at the Faculty of Psychology at the University of Valencia. She holds a PhD in psychological research and was awarded with the Extraordinary Doctorate Award and International Distinction in 2019. Her research focuses on socio-emotional development in children, adolescents, and young adults, particularly the use of digital tools such as serious games and online programs to promote psychological well-being. Konstanze, please go ahead and share your screen. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to share some of the insights from my experience as psychologist, but also professor working with children, adolescents, and trying to enhance their social emotional well-being through different programs, also using gamification. And yeah, I will start by asking the question why this is so important. And I really congratulate all of you for making an effort to join us today and talk about that, because topic matters a lot. Like children today, they're called the Generation Alpha, and that is like the first true digital native generation where technology is a part of almost everything that they do, and it's becoming very hard to separate childhood from the digital world. And Generation Alpha includes children born between 2010 and 2025, and the year 2010 actually was symbolic because app was the word of the year, and both the iPad and the Instagram were launched the same year. So from the year that they are born, these children have been surrounded by smart devices, digital platforms, and they're growing up in a world where technology works 24/7. For them, technology is not something extra; it's actually a part of their daily life. So they use these technologies for entertainment, for gaming, for communication, but increasingly also for learning, especially since the pandemic in 2019, 2020. And research shows that by the age of 2, many children can already use touchscreens and navigate apps, skills that earlier generations have learned much later. So this is why this generation is called digital natives. And it's important to think about how these children develop, because early childhood is very sensitive. It's a very sensitive period for their cognitive, for their emotional, for the social development. And what children experience now shapes their future and their future well-being. So that's because it's important to create guidance, to give guidance from parents, from educators, but also policymakers. It's essential that children are guided in this digital world, and they need our help. They need adults to help them to use technology in a meaningful way. So when we think about the impact that technology has on the social emotional development, we know that it's not only about the screen time that is also important, but it's actually what matters also is a context. So in a recent meta-analysis, they showed that children under 6, it's not so much about the time that they spend in front of the screen, it's about how they use the technology and how they use the time that they spend here. So for example, passive program viewing, like just watching a YouTube video or a TikTok video, so simply watching without interaction, that is actually negatively associated with both cognitive but also social and emotional development. And also age inappropriate content. They have even a stronger negative effect, especially on children's social and emotional adjustment. But also just only background TV. So when they watch or hear TV in the background, when they are eating together with their families, for example, this is already linked to poor cognitive outcomes because of the distraction, both in the children as well as the caregivers. But the study also found some positive sides. So the co-use, where caregivers and children engage together in the digital context, that was actually associated with a better cognitive and social outcomes. So this tells us, for example, parental mediation and the content that children see and the social context and where they engage in technology is extremely important. And from a broader, there's also broader evidence from the OECD report 2025 that confirms that digital technologies brings both opportunities and risk for physical health, for cognitive development, learning, and also for social emotional well-being. So for cognitive development, excessive or passive screen time, that is what brings a delay in language development, which reduces also attention span and replace more beneficial activities like playing together, exploring, or conversation. But there are also opportunities, for example, using interactive ebooks or early learning apps or high quality videos that actually can support language development, but also creativity when it's used in age appropriate and guided ways. For emotional and social well-being, the most important risk, I think, is the problematic or excessive use. So losing control over digital gaming or social media can lead to addiction-like behaviors. And this really is associated with higher levels of depression, with loneliness, stress, and lower self-esteem. So exposure also to inappropriate or harmful content or even negative online interactions like cyberbullying can contribute again to anxiety and emotional distress. But at the same time, digital spaces offer opportunities. So it can be fun. They can connect to other people and also build identities. So these online communities allow children and adolescents to interact with each other, to share their interests, to feel part of a group, and especially for young people that come from a minority group. These online community can be actually a vital source of support and belonging. So taking into account the opportunities, but especially the risk, the World Health Organization recommended very strict screen limits for children under the age of 5. So in their report from 2019, they actually recommend that children under the age of 2 shouldn't remain inactive in front of a screen. So no screen time at all for them. So just watching TV or watching videos. But beginning at the age of 2 until 4, the maximum of 2 hours per day is recommended because children need to play, to engage in physical activity, and also sleep the hours that are recommended. And too much screen time interferes with those more essential routines. And when it comes to the family, we know that family also shape a lot how children use technology. And there's a very important risk factor that I recently covered, which is parental phobbing. And this means when parents pay more attention to their phones and ignore their child. And research shows that phobbing is linked to more internalizing problems like anxiety with emotional withdrawal, more externalizing problems also like aggression or aggressive behavior, and lower self-esteem and weaker social emotional skills. So as smartphone use grows, phobbing becomes a very serious threat to healthy development within the family context. And research shows that parents also differ in how they guide children in their digital use. So it's important to use more active mediation strategies like talking, co-using, co-playing, and guiding them through those different technologies. And this is actually related to better social emotional development, to healthier digital habits, and to more positive family relationships. But on the other hand, if parents use a more restrictive control when it comes to technology without communication, for example, that often can backfire. So this actually leads to more conflict because if the child has a problematic use, then the parent will maybe use more control, and this leads to more tension. So it's important to keep in mind that how we guide children through mediation, in the end, it's a very dynamic process and depends a lot on the age, of course, of the child, on the context, also on the parents' own skills and beliefs, but it's essential. And how can family support a healthy development with simple practices? So I recommend first to promote co-use, to use digital tools together with the child, discussing what to see in order to enrich the experience. Also to create device-free routines. I think that's essential, like during meals, of course for bedtime, but also through family interactions or events. So the small moments, we need to preserve those small moments to connect and to be emotionally present. And the last one is to try to replace passive reading with interactive, age-appropriate activities. So digital media can support creativity when children engage actively rather than simply consuming content and click, 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 click. And when it comes to teachers, Of course, they also play a very important role in how children interact with technology and also how to gain digital well-being. And digital tools should enrich learning, not replace it. So teacher can guide children by collaborating during digital activities, asking questions about them, linking digital content to real life experiences. So it's important to promote this co-creation where we encourage children to explore, to experiment rather passively watch. And to do this well, educators also need strong digital skills and social emotional teaching practices. So teachers in the end act as facilitators, helping children use technology in a thoughtful and constructive way. And how can we do this? Well, practical tips for teachers could be just to use digital tools intentionally, to really ask ourselves, like, why do we use this tool and how does it support my learning strategies or my teaching strategies? Also, as teacher, we are facilitators and we have to model healthy media habits in the classroom. We also can encourage collaboration and problem solving through digital projects. And in the end, it's important to combine digital activities with also movements, with discussions and hands-on learning. And as a takeaway, I think it's important to highlight that children's well-being in the digital era depends on how adults guide them. So I think the key message here is we can only accompany children as far as we as adults have come. So that's why we have to strengthen parents and educators' digital literacy awareness and also how they model, how they facilitate. The second one is social emotional development is most at risk, and adults play a protective role. So the key message here is that healthy digital use is relational, not solitary. So teachers and parents act as emotional regulators, co-narrators, and the relationship and build the relationship between the child and how they interact with media and with technology. And the last one, educators and families need clear guidance, training, consistent routines. So the key message here is that children thrive when adults have the knowledge, the confidence, and are coordinated also in guidance and to support them. So yeah, thank you again for your attention and for giving me the opportunity to be part of this online forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Konstanze, for your very insightful presentation. Now let's move to our fourth and final speaker for tonight. Our speaker is Dr. Cara Dillon. Cara is connecting very early in the morning in the USA to be with us today. Thank you so much, Cara, for waking up very early today. Cara is an assistant professor of school psychology at Miami University. Her research focuses on integrating technology like artificial intelligence into school psychology training in K-12 education. Additionally, she works in advocacy spaces and encourages others to get involved in advocacy for the profession. She is also a co-chair of APA Division 16's Women in Psychology Committee and co-chair of the NASP Advocacy and Public Policy Interest Group. Cara, please go ahead and share your screen. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. I'm excited to share with you a little bit about crafting positive classroom environments and using artificial intelligence with adults to help children thrive. So as many of the other speakers noted that there are a lot of interactions for children in the digital age with technology. And we see that outcomes are mixed. We can also see artificial intelligence systems improving social emotional outcomes when used meaningfully within the early childhood classroom. But then we also see youth reporting using chatbots to replace human friendships rather than augmenting human friendships. And so we see this push and pull of our digital age and our digital technologies, either pulling children closer to their friends or pushing them away towards technology. So when there are so many digital influences, how do we help children flourish? How do we ensure that they are succeeding and that our digital technologies are not replacing friendships and aren't negatively impacting their social emotional learning skills? And there is a great answer. So I talk about schools and school psychology because my practice spends a lot of time actually with adults in order to help children. And what we know about the adults in children's life is that the relationships with them matter a lot. And in particular, I want to talk about teachers. Teachers are with our students for an extended period of time out of the day, and their influence is really important. As we see, there is lots of evidence that positive relationships between a teacher and a student predict more pro-social behavior in children, and negative relationships lead to poor outcomes social, emotionally, and also academically. So it's not just that we need to build positive social relationships between teachers and students, but we also want to make sure that we are not having negative relationships between teachers and students. So in order to build this resiliency of having positive adults in children's lives, we have to be very proactive with this process and ensuring teachers know what to do in the classroom to help children succeed. As we are being more intentional with social emotional learning in the classroom, we're making sure that we are targeting skills that are relevant to adults to help build connections with children. And that's the great part, is there are actionable items teachers can take to better connect with the students in their classrooms. For example, we can use greetings and check-ins at the door when students come in. Greetings and check-ins are personalized ways to see how a student is doing when they come into the classroom in the morning. And it doesn't just serve as a way for the teacher to connect with the student, but for the teacher to assess the emotional regulation of the student coming into the classroom, to check in for any environmental variables that might be impacting the child that day, and even helping them regulate when they come in the door. Teachers can also model positive behaviors to children throughout the day. A teacher might be able to show a calming routine that they use that the children can use when they're feeling emotionally dysregulated. Teachers can identify their own emotions and model emotion identification, which is an important part of social emotional learning, to children. And every time two adults interact with one another in the school, they are modeling relationship skills. Teachers can also have an important role to play in encouraging positive participation in the classroom. As children interact with each other with group projects at recess, in unstructured and structured times, teachers can encourage students to use skills that maybe are not yet fully familiar to them to build that practice with social emotional learning skills. As children work in group projects, they can encourage students to speak up and ask for permission to talk during those times, or share information with friends, or ask somebody to come play. And really having the teacher be the one who says, "You are capable of doing this positive skill. I want you to show it to me now." And finally, teachers can praise these positive behaviors. And we know that when teachers praise students, other students have a more positive view of that child. So even just providing praise for the positive behaviors the child is already doing will increase their social standing in the classroom. So what teachers can do and what they pay attention to in the classroom can determine the social abilities of children. And whenever we want to see more of something in the classroom, we can provide praise for that. So if we see a child getting out of their shell and inviting somebody to play with them, we can provide them subtle praise to ensure that they know that they did a good job, even if it doesn't turn out the way that we thought it might. However, we come to a problem. Teachers, at least in the United States, are not always taught how to do behavior management in this way or social emotional learning skills in this way, because there's so much focus on reading, writing, and math and subject and content knowledge that it might not be as familiar to especially new teachers or older teachers of how to positively connect with children in this way, especially when children are struggling to build these skills. We want to make sure teachers can fully support them. So, one way we do this is consultation and coaching. And this is where really the adults are interacting together, where a school psychologist or a school counselor is connecting with that teacher to build skills. So if you are a related service provider working with teachers or even parents. This is something we can do to help those their parents and teachers succeed so that our children can succeed. And what this looks like is we identify strengths and areas for improvement of that teacher. So we might find that the teacher is fabulous at greeting students at the door and ensuring they come into the classroom on a positive note, but they haven't been as good at praising positive behaviors in the classroom. Just like we would identify strengths and areas of improvement for children, we can do that for adults too. Next, we'd set a goal with that teacher and say, let's work on providing 2 more praise statements to children during group work, just so that there's something measurable that they can attain. We would support learning with professional development, with modeling and practice of their own. Many teachers have skills, but they don't know how to continuously use them. They might be able to greet a student at the door one day, but what kind of questions are they going to ask on day 5, day 10, day 15 to make sure students aren't bored with what they're doing and that the connection feels genuine? And finally, after a teacher sets a goal and we've helped them develop their skills, we want to provide continuous feedback. We want to observe in the classroom and say how they met their goals, see if there's any other ways we can support their learning to ensure success too. And if we can build teacher skills, that just doesn't impact one child that we could work with a social emotional learning intervention, but that could impact a whole classroom of children all at once and every class of children that teacher has to follow. And what's great is while we can be very concerned about artificial intelligence and children interacting with artificial intelligence, we can build our own competency with artificial intelligence and learn more about it in order to build adult skills. So, for example, we are starting to use artificial intelligence for targeted professional learning for teachers. So, one teacher might need help with greetings and check-ins. One teacher might need help with modeling or even just knowledge about social emotional learning. And instead of telling all teachers all things, we can provide targeted professional learning support to those teachers with artificial intelligence. We can help with planning as well. When we set a goal to help a teacher in the classroom, they need to know, well, when are they going to try this new skill? What are they going to do when there's a bump in the road? And planning can be helpful with artificial intelligence, listening to a session with the teacher's permission, of course, and then condensing that into a document that summarizes the events. There's also some information on data collection and management, where once a teacher sets a goal, we want to track that with data, and artificial intelligence is very good at condensing that data and putting it in a digestible graph or visual representation. And finally, coach support and development. So a coach or a consultant might need to build their own skills too, and continuous development is good for that too. And we're seeing artificial intelligence having a role in that and being an accurate supervisor for that purpose. So for this, I really want to emphasize that in order to help children learn and develop their social emotional learning skills, we as adults have to be ready to support them. And that means building our own skills and helping the other adults around us build those skills too.
Thank you so much, Cara, for your presentation. Wow, we have learned a lot from our wonderful speakers tonight. Thank you so much all for spending your time to prepare your presentations and for your willingness to share your knowledge. We have learned a lot from our sharing, and certainly our audience have some questions for you. Anyone can answer the questions if it is not addressed to a specific presenter. And also, Professor Alfredo will help me in looking at the questions posted by our audience. And so far, I have seen some 2 questions. One is from Christine Gabriel. She's asking, is there any studies on cultural and or gender differences regarding the effects of technology on well-being, creativity, etc.?
Well, I can contribute a little bit to that from research that we have been doing here in Spain, but also like more international research when it comes to gender differences. So it's true that there has been a lot of studies about how technology affects boys and girls, especially at younger ages, but also when they are adolescents. So from what I remember, as girls, for example, use technology different. They use it more for social interaction, for communication, and also for express themselves. But that makes them also more vulnerable for social comparison on Instagram, other social platforms. So they actually experience higher anxiety and also issues when it comes to body dissatisfaction and also like a lower self-esteem, like due to the social comparison. And when it comes to boys, I remember some studies that say that boys use technology more for gaming and competitive activities, and that's why they're a little bit more vulnerable to problematic gaming. So this is a little bit the gender differences that I remember. When it comes to cultural differences, I'm not very sure if there are a lot of studies about what cultural differences we can see in development, like how technology shapes development. But I'm sure there are studies about that.
Thank you, Constance, for your sharing. I would like to add on with Constance's response. I think with the gender differences, over the years, we've been seeing a consistent results in terms of how female and male youth uses technology. So it's been consistent that female has been shown to be frequently using technology devices, engaging in social media platforms, and then for male youth, it's more on for playing mobile games. However, these studies are more frequently being explored in adolescents. So I haven't seen like any studies in the context of early childhood in comparison for male and female. And apparently, in general, the use of technology for young children is really underexplored. And that's why, this kinds of conversation is very important as we try to motivate and engage people to explore further this area. And especially that we have younger children nowadays using technology devices. In terms of cultural differences, I have only like explored before, but this is in the context of preschool teachers. So I have compared preschool teachers' ICT competence beliefs in Hong Kong and also in the Philippines. Because in terms of the comparison, we have compared those preschool teachers in the Philippines who doesn't have much resources in terms of using technology devices to teach young children in comparison with Hong Kong that is more uh, promoting more the use of technology in the classroom, and they're starting to really use widely use devices in the classroom. But surprisingly, it is expected so far that of course Hong Kong would have higher competency just because it's more widely used here in Hong Kong. However, our results show that Philippines preschool teachers from the Philippines have higher ICT competence beliefs than here in Hong Kong. So basically, it's not really the resources that made some differences in terms of these beliefs, but how they are actually using these devices. I think for Filipino teachers, they are widely using these technology devices, although it has been expandedly used in terms of, not for academic purposes, but it's more on also for social media and also for shopping, like online shopping. And for Hong Kong people, it's more likely that they use it for academic purposes as well. So those are the very limited cultural differences that I know. But whenever I see some articles also exploring cultural or gender differences, they're more focused on the way they use these technology devices. But its impact on well-being is still also, or social development is still also underexplored. The next question is from Sonia Rafael. So usually we hear about gamification as a method to spark curiosity. So it's an interesting connection to explore between the dopamine hits via technological gamification, AI-driven content, and its effects on erosion of stamina in curiosity, especially in the ECE setting. So I think it's more of like a comment, I should say.
I'd like to share what I think. But I mean, as with what I've shared a while ago, and as with other colleagues here, Cara and Constance have actually mentioned. So, the scientific landscape is not very crystal clear. So like say for example, because creativity or curiosity were mentioned at least in the feedback. So within the gifted education or gifted in science literature, so we are not quite sure about how too much use of technology like generative AI, what we see it can actually impact on creativity and talent development. So because like many of the modern or recent formulations of giftedness development, say for example, would emphasize how we, as adults, right, teachers, parents, and other socially significant others, we have to build learning contexts that can accelerate the academic or cognitive development of highly gifted and talented children, right? So, and how do we do it? We turn to different enrichment exercises. Most of them typically are face-to-face kind of mentoring sessions, etc. But with the too much use of AI, right? So, and AI could actually give automatic feedback, immediate response. So, and if our young gifted learners would turn to AI instead of turning to like mentors like us. So, what would then be the implications in terms of the rate of talent growth or cognitive development, like pace, like not unless we think that giftedness or IQ might develop in a vacuum, right? So you can definitely jump from potential to eminence, say for example, to expertise. You don't need PhD stuff. You just type, something, in the AI tool, right? But if we're coming from the premise that we have to gradually develop this foundational academic skills, and we turn to AI for teaching young children this kinds of like academic skills, then what are we doing exactly? So are we really giving them opportunity to have an optimal talent development trajectory, or the other way around? So I guess like yeah, it actually points to the importance, as with what Cara, Konstanze said, like we have to be very, very careful in thinking about how we can responsibly use these technologies to facilitate effective learning of any cognitive or social emotional skills. So at least we can reach a point where not too much dopamine can be at least kind of activated with all these technological booms, I guess. Yeah. So that's what I think about it.
Thanks, Jess. I can see just to help Jana a little bit. I can see two questions that came up in the chat and in the Q&A box, which are related. So I would just like to jump in and read them, which I think probably many parents will be really interested in this. One of them is, how can a parent convince a child to limit their device usage when they are practically glued to it, which is similar to this other question, which says, can kindly share tips or ideas for effective detoxification for elementary school children. So I don't know if any of you would like to take these two questions, which I suppose that these are really very relevant to, well, parents and teachers as well.
I think part of this is understanding when and where children are accessing devices to understand how often they're engaging with it. And part of this is, as Konstanze was saying, interacting with the child, with the technology is a great way to engage them in technology, but not necessarily giving the child the agency over the technology as a parent. So ensuring that you are in charge of the technology. Part of this is creating other engaging experiences for children in play with you. If they're really seeking that social connection that a YouTube video and a really convincing content creator can develop with a video, can you have that same interaction and play with those children to help them engage with you and build those social emotional learning skills outside of that technology? And if you're a teacher, it's very difficult. In the United States, many children have laptops and Chromebooks and iPads in the classroom, and part of that could be taking time away from the screens to have them do group work together, to engage in those social emotional learning activities and engaging in academic activities.
Exactly, Cara. Thank you for your intervention. And I think the key here is also what we call mediation instead of restriction, because if we want to restrict the use of technology, we will have this opposite effect, why they want to engage and actually create conflict between maybe families and children, but also maybe between teachers and children. So the important part is here how to use this mediation strategies in order to together use technology in a way that is actually meaningful and that we can actually help them to understand better what they are doing and also try to find a way of collaborating. And also some strategies actually could be quite useful and that we already use with other things because we think about technology and mobiles and so on, but we have been doing or have been seeing the same for maybe like things that children want to eat but not are not so healthy. So in the end, as parents, as educators, we have to establish a healthy routine when it comes not only in terms of habits like habits in terms of eating habits or activity habits, but also habits related to technology. So really try to establish, for example, device-free meals or also the bedtime without the phone. And I think as educators and as parents, we have to be the role model. We have to show the same habits that we expect from our children. So as I said, when it comes to phobbing, for example, if we are the ones glued to our phones, it's normal that children will imitate the same behavior. So it's important that we first are aware of our own use, of our own maybe misuse of technology in order to be a better model for our children. So I think these aspects are important, and I think this is a way also to achieve that children use technology in a more healthy way if we as adults are also being a good model and a healthy model.
Yeah, we have lots of questions. I think
Lots.
I'll go for this one first. So, what are the implications of AI system biases, for example, from bias training data for children, especially in educational settings where children may be easily influenced, and how might this affect the child's social development? This one is a very interesting and also a challenging question. Yes, Cara.
I've seen this interact in two ways. I think about bias at a systems level when we're trying to use artificial intelligence to make clear decisions and database decisions. We might be seeing bias in the training data of the AI impact our decisions as adults, where we see if we have racially biased data, then we might be making racially biased decisions. I believe a school district in Wisconsin, United States, was using it to identify students at risk for dropout, and it was over-identifying Black students as at risk for dropout, but not white students with similar characteristics. And we can also see this whenever we are having children engage with AI, where we did this at our university. We described ourselves as an urban youth who is working or at a typically more Black attending school versus a white attending school. And the AI recommended us become a vet technician rather than a veterinarian if we described ourselves as living in a more urban area and attending a school that's more considered a Black attending school. So we even see the bias there that if a child is engaging with AI and asking them what they should be in life or what they should do, that it might give different advice depending on if the AI thinks that you're from one racial group or another. And that is bias that can be very harmful if we're telling all of our students of a different racial background that they should be a veterinarian or a vet tech or a psychologist or a psych assistant. So that's one way I've seen that happen.
Thank you so much, Cara. Yes, Dr. Jess.
Yeah, well, I guess we could start off with what Jana shared a while ago, her example of like, so what if we're in a scenario where we would actually put, a prompt to any specific Gen AI tool, right? So it would automatically give us like, a quick response, right? So even if it turns out that your immediate kind of prompt is not was not phrased in a very nice way, right? It could respond in the most compassionate, kind of, out of the earth response in a positive way. But in real life interactions, is that the way things go, right? So again, the rules of social etiquette, the rules of what constitutes a healthy social interaction, right? And if the ones who develop the AI tools would have a predetermined kind of script, cognitive script on how healthy social interaction should look, that would end up, being encrypted in the whatever AI tool. And if kids got socialized or exposed to these AI tools, you could imagine what types of social skills they may end up getting. So, like, are we training them to live in a world where unrealistic norms for behaving properly is actually the way to go, or not? So then that puts a very, like, rigid and probably a little bit daunting accountability to those who are creating these AI tools, right? Because they're just concerned of if they're just concerned about creating profit, creating money, this list of things that can generate income or status, then are we doing good for the children in the long run, right? Or for the next generations to come? So I guess, like, the question was really a very intelligent one, I guess, right? So it actually reminds us about trying to strive a balance between you know the possible economic kind of rewards that go with rapidly advancing this technological tools, and in what ways we have to put some moral standards in the way we're trying to tailor craft things. So I guess it's not totally bad after all. That's why scientists like us may need to step in at some point on how we can see things from different vantage points, like as with what Constance and Cara have been sharing a while ago beautifully. Like, it's a matter of striking a balance. It's trying to remind adults that instead of just simply turning to these tools, we have to step up with our roles. Like, in what ways we can better negotiate with our kids on how AI or how other technological tools can lead to effective social behaviors, right? So, in what ways we can clarify the way we're doing parenting within the context of parenting these young children, at this digital era. So I guess that's really a very good question to probably, or a good reflection point,
Yeah.
like more of a reminder for all of us, I guess.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Jess, for your answers as well. So I guess I can connect this question because it's somehow contradictory to the first question, to our answers to this the recent question. So this question is from Hauran. So thank you for the insightful presentations. I have a question regarding how teachers can use AI as a co-constructing learning partner in ways that actively strengthen children's resilience and confidence rather than increasing dependence on technology. How should we think about whether and to what extent we need to set boundaries between human interaction and AI child interaction in ECE settings? So this question is poses more on, what could be the potential of like positive use of AI for young children, and to set into what limit or boundaries can we set for human interaction and AI interaction?
Yes, thank you for all the questions. I think they help us also to reflect a little bit on this topic that is quite complex, and sometimes it's hard to think about a clear pathway and a clear recommendation. But when we have talked about how technology might be useful when we use it in a respectful and also a constructive way, right? And what I wanted to also convey the message is that AI and any other technology or tool can help in order to scaffold learning, not to replace it, not to replace other tools that we are already doing, but we can use AI in order to provide prompts, idea, and also get feedback, right? In order to help children to make choices, to explore by their own, and also to maybe find different ways of problem solving. Because in the end, in our AI, can act a little bit like a teacher to help generate different suggestions, help the child to generate different alternatives for a problem, and also question them in order to think deeper about a certain problem. So I think it can help, but always if there is proper guidance by a teacher who also knows how to review the prompts that children are using and review the whole conversation. And I think it's important to again, as a teacher, first be the one who tries to get education and training in AI use. So I know it's harder for our generation because we're not the alpha generation. It's something that doesn't come so easily for us. And some teachers feel like a lack of self-efficacy in using those digital tools and using AI. But it's important to realize that this is a part of our everyday life now. So it's important to get familiar with those tools, to know how to use them in order to be a better facilitator, to be a better model for our children, for the children that we also want to teach and want them to learn how to use those skills. So I think it's important to set boundaries also when it comes to not to replace teachers with AI, but as a teacher, being the one who helps to guide the child when they engage with those tools, and especially when it comes to critical thinking, also maybe how they interact with the tool when it comes to emotional regulation, for example, when they get a negative feedback, just be there, guide them, and help them to understand better. So I think there should be a limit not to use AI or use AI as something that replaces our normal learning tools, but something additional, something that can complement what we already do, and only when it makes sense, when it actually has a learning objective that aligns with our strategies, with our curriculum. I think then it can actually enhance the dialogue between the child and the teacher. Can be a very useful tool, but yeah, we have to be very aware of how much we already know and how much do we actually need to learn in order to be a good facilitator. So I think it's about our own limits, how much we know about our own skills and how much we maybe need to learn first before introducing it in our classrooms.
Thank you so much, Constance. Yeah, I just want to add like one practical example that I usually share to my students in the class. So one example is that there are some AI platforms to help you create some digital stories. And you know, in preschool classrooms, we love to share some storytelling with them, right? And with this one, you can actually do like a class-based AI activity. So instead of asking each children to have their own individual practices of using AI. So this one is a classroom based wherein there's like a one projector showing the AI platform to them, and you ask them to share or create their own stories and collaborate in sharing this one story. So in this kind of activity, it's sort of combining the use of AI and seeing how AI works when they give prompts on creating that story, but in a sense, they are also actively interacting with each other, with their classmates, with their peers, in sharing whatever or contribute some ideas on how this story is being created, and also the teacher providing support and comments and suggestions on whatever prompts they are telling AI to create the story. And the teacher can also actively ask the students on whatever the AI is producing while they are doing it. So say, for example, when you prompt AI to create a story about a triangle, we use this in the class. And then surprisingly, in some slides of the stories, AI produced a wrong shape, which is a circle on the next a part of the story. And so this kinds of mistakes from AI can be also find by these children, and so they are also learning while they are using AI, but in a sense it's combined with human interaction, so it's not purely AI interaction. So that could be my additional practical suggestion as well for this question. And I think because of the time, I will just be asking one last question. um, this question is from Emma. This is from Vanaja. Any research related to AI aid dyslexia students and how it helps them. And maybe probably for all listeners here, so aside from dyslexia, maybe we can broaden it to any other children with special needs. Is there any research related to AI and its use for children with special needs?
In terms of dyslexia specifically, there's some emerging research on identification through reading passages or writing passages for dyscalculia and dysgraphia. However, the research is pretty slim for interventions using that. However, AI can do things like reading out information with voice features to help students, or that the students can talk to the AI and it can write for them if we're thinking more of accommodations. However, when we're thinking of students with additional needs in general, our AIs can help with things just like gathering ideas, being able to talk to the AI and it can create notes for you or summarize what you were talking about or provide outlines for students who need organizational help. So there are things that we know can help students that an AI can mimic as if it were a piece of paper or a teacher helping. However, I'm not aware of AI programs in particular that are targeting one specific area of need that have a great deal of information and research behind them. But if you're providing, individualized support for a student with math needs, an AI can help differentiate instruction for math needs. So it's not necessarily a research based, just what can the AI tool do and what doesn't do you need to meet for that student.
Thank you, Cara. Jess?
Yeah, well, Cara's right. So I've come across some of this preliminary kind of investigation. So there's another one from Griffith University using AI to support twice exceptional learners, right? So I mean, turning to personalized learning, system, and using different Gen AI tools to be able to facilitate differentiation strategies. But again, the evidence is very, very early at this point and not quite conclusive. So, but at least at a practical level, if we can use AI to help us better understand the learning and social emotional needs of the children we're serving, and if AI can do its work in helping us map what kind of like repertoire in terms of teaching that can help us differentiate our teaching or assessment strategies a bit more, then probably we can use AI to our advantage at some point.
Thank you all for your responses to these questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jana, for proposing this interesting topic for intra-conversations today. We can really see how timely it is, given the number of participants who sign up for the session and the number of questions that we had. Thanks also to Jess, Konstanze, and Cara for your sharing and for sharing your research and your work with us. So it was actually very interesting. It's my turn to say special thanks to my colleagues Sophie Chua and Jana Cheng, who are some of my team members. They are always incredibly helpful in terms of helping to put these sessions together and coordinate all the different speakers and promotion of the event and all the technical aspects of intra-conversation. So thanks so much to Sophie and Jana for this. One thing I would like to share on behalf of the Department of Early Childhood Education is just to share with you some very brief information about our two master programs and also about our higher diploma programs. My team has recently edited these very pretty nice promotional videos about this program with some information. The deadlines to apply for them is coming up soon, is coming up in January. So if anybody in the room is interested to join one of our programs in the Department of Early Childhood Education, you can just grab your phone, scan the QR code, watch these promotional videos, and then if someone is interested, just rush up because the deadlines are coming up in January. So we would like you to join our department soon. One final thing I would like to share with you is that our EC department has, as you can see on the screen, a variety of social media platforms where we share our work and where we share our research and our information about our programs and about the different activities we do in the ECE department. So again, you can grab your phone and scan these QR codes to choose your preferred platform, and then that way you are going to stay tuned and connected to the work we do in the Department of Early Childhood Education here at EDU Hong Kong. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We will be keeping in touch with you for future sessions. Normally, we run these sessions once every 3 months, approximately. So hopefully you will hear from us very soon with information about our next intro conversations, right? So thanks so much, and I hope you have a great night or a great day. All right, bye-bye.